Hi everyone, this is Karak from Angry Centaur Gaming, the channel that brings you no bullcrap reviews at the speed of light. Brace yourself, it's about to get belligerent. Today I'm stoked to bring you the review for Battlefield Hardline by Visceral Games, a Battlefield title in the Battlefield theme, but now with more single-player story where they have indeed removed the battlefield and instead inserted the gamer into the eyes, soul, and mind of Mendoza, a detective on the front lines of the drug war. So I guess in the end there's probably a battlefield here, but it's most likely just like miles and miles of hemp football fields that the fighters set ablaze and race around in circles on while eating Cheetos, and then start getting tired and forget why they're even there. So does Battlefield Hardline do the one thing everyone's wanted from a Battlefield game, and that's make a story that's at least somewhat passable, and better yet, do it without resorting to another end-of-the-world, catastrophic meltdown laser-firing satellite finish? Or does Battlefield stray into the path of friendly fire, bobbing around while trying to find a story, like that dude in Saving Private Ryan that kept trying to find his arm after it was shot off? Sounds like fun. Let's check this out. Remember, this review is caffeinated, which means delivered at speed to your audio clearance lobes without hesitation for heavenly silence, and based on time with the Xbox One, PS4, and Xbox 360 versions. Up first is graphics. There's some issues here. First, it's not a locked 60 frames a second on past or current gen. Instead, it's sort of a meandering less than, and if that wasn't the worst thing, the game just doesn't look that good for, let's say, longer than 12-second moments. So it's like those beautiful seconds right before Mariah Carey opens her damn giant air hole and says something akin to listening to Angels farting a battle tune called Crazy Train comes out. It looks good, then it doesn't, then it does again. It's pixelated and low resolution textures on all versions, and they just simply abound. And the game doesn't help itself with an already low 720p resolution on the Xbox One and 900p resolution on the PS4. It's just not very pretty looking, leaving past gen versions looking either better than you expect for a last gen game or scarily close to a next gen system, which is something no one wants or expects. That's not to say that the game is ugly all the time. At times there are some amazingly pretty vistas and moments, whether you're driving the car with a Daisy Dukes wearing chick scarier than inviting Charles Manson over to the house to juggle knives, or fighting your way across a multi-tiered office building with a bunch of enemies hot on your tail. There are indeed scenes that look really good. It's just sadly these scenes fall apart so damn quickly on that 20 to 25 second scale. As for characters and animation, it's hit and miss, with the animations being actually very well done, though there are some hitches during battle animations and level playthroughs, but that ends up leaving you watching what has to be some of the scariest plastic mannequins talking like humans I have ever seen. Nowhere is the extra graphics push of the next-gen systems really shown here, and instead you get well-animated terror drones that seem to speak to you of murder and anarchy. That might be pushing it a bit, but seriously, after seeing what can be done with skin texturing even on last-gen systems, this is just not that good. It's very, very average and fairly disappointing. Lastly, I was also severely disappointed by the emptiness of the world in all ways. My lord, it's like the rapture, but God said, fuck it, most of you can just come along, and you're left with like 32 stray dudes sort of wandering around watching TV or lifting weights in their front yard. This is last generation empty world syndrome when you actually go out into levels. It is crazy. It feels completely empty. In the end, the game just doesn't look that good. It's muddy and unclean, and though there are moments where it looks great upon movement, and even with the destruction of environments added in, it just doesn't hold enough water like it should. When I can't tell that Kelly Hu is a character in the game because someone done fucked up her face so much she looks like that kid from Phantom Menace with black hair as a female, well, that's actually saying something. Sound.
Spread out! Watch out! Stop him! Oh, shit! Fuck!
You know, I have to say this one's a little tough, but a little bit better. The sounds are actually really well done, with everything but a couple of the silenced weapons sounding realistic. Special effects and situational area effects seem to be applied where needed, but at times, many things do fall apart again. For example, little things like running through giant mud puddles doesn't change the sounds of your footsteps. Running into the swamp will, but smaller localized changes to the world don't always resonate, and hearing a heavy stormtrooper thump of boots in a 3-yard long mud puddle just seems odd. It's a little thing, but noticeable that something was missing and might be an indicator that some accuracy has been lost here or there. Other than those little missteps, the sounds are excellent and for the most part dispersed across the entire spectrum of audio, from the low boom of an initial bomb blast to the rattle your teeth chatter of some of the higher speed, low caliber machine guns. I also did think that the sometimes ambient track was a little thick in areas where nothing is actually happening. Hilariously, there are a few moments walking down a block with nothing moving, no airplanes, no people, and there's this pipe track, a sound plane, that would make you think far more was occurring, and you're in some other dimension where everyone's made of invisible people parts. Lastly, their surround sound settings are pretty bare to absolute minimum, and their spread doesn't seem incredibly robust for today's home theater systems. It doesn't seem like the audio is really up to the task like it was in Battlefield 4. Music, my favorite part.
That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the neutralized. I can't fucking move.
Okay, here's a part where the game just excels, whether it's metal piping out of a teammate's armored truck as they roll in front of you to save your ass from taking a shotgun to the face, or some rather well-placed scenic music between chapters, or even a nod to Red Dead and its final confrontation music. The score here is well done. The tracks fit the narrative, the story, and even in multiplayer, everything just feels perfectly, and they cut out a little small place in your memory for themselves. Very good score. Not masterpiece, but incredibly enjoyable. No mistakes seem to have been made. Up next is voice and voice actors, the unseen masters of the digital game world.
Nice work. Remember, if that thing buzzes, it means you're near evidence.
Guy responsible for flooding the streets of Miami with this liquid cocaine hotshot garbage? Our new friend Tyson Latchford.
It's excellent. They got the right actors and they gave them some fairly good dialogue for a video game, of course. The voices are done excellent, add weight to the scenes, and never alienate by elevating the voice actor themselves, but instead add motivations to characters. Even if at times the story itself doesn't. The voices were excellent through and through. No one missed a beat. Up next is gameplay. You're Mendoza, stuck as a detective on the front lines of a drug war and playing out your actions like CSI Miami or one of the countless police procedurals currently on TV like Homicide LA or Good Cop with Problems New York edition. Here, a chapter can play right after one another, or they have vast stretches of time between themselves, and that is where we come to the first part of the story. It might also be around the first time you go, what the fuck is going on? As it plays out and you're watching it, you notice the seesaw that's occurring and you realize that someone didn't tell these guys they didn't need to try to make a story like Battlefield but at a grittier level, because that doesn't work. Instead, you get a story that plays whack-a-mole with believability and viewer interaction, to the point that by the time it was done, I realized that if I threw 3 wombats, a baby carriage, and some toast in the future, I'd have the same chance of ramming into that story at some future time as the writers would of writing it. What really hurts it is the overall theme is incredibly sound. No, seriously, this is a sound theme, and played out in the detritus and social and racial mosh pit of city slums is the perfect place for it. But instead of telling a tale of corruption through the very hearts of man like marbled beef, you get a meandering and drunken story of backstabbing, people just not giving a shit they were backstabbed, then actively removing the linchpin of the backstabbing and replacing it with something that makes so little sense they might have well just spent the last half of the hour selling you catheters that can be delivered to your home. Both make as much sense in the ending of this game. I mean, damn man, at the very end you're just sitting there looking at the screen going, what? Now, don't get me wrong, it's not actually bad or horrible, or let's say as bad as Star Child and Mass Effect, because I don't think these guys actively went out to make themselves look embarrassing. But it does beg the question, what's missing here? What was cut? Like chapters and lines and script and story and everything. Luckily, gun handling in the game is solid, as so is the gameplay itself, though you can feel it being called Battlefield Indoor 2.1 or something like that. There's also an extraordinary amount of weapons you can unlock as you continue on and level up as a detective, which is both awesome and slightly alarming that a police detective may have some of these weapons just sitting around local shops and shit with a sign on them that says, please don't disturb, we're on the honor system. However, everything handles tightly in the destructive environments, though still not up to what any gamer truly wants or expects, can be enjoyed with the heavier caliber weapons in the game. However, like with everything else in this game, there's a give and take. No matter what difficulty, no matter what enemies, the gun damage balance in the single player seems out of tune. My suppressed handguns seem to do about as much damage as yelling out Power Ranger names at the bad guys. I've seen Bad Will do more damage than some of the weapons, and no matter the difficulty, a shot with a 7.62 to a portly dude who looks like my neighbor's dad who mows the lawn with his shirt open should kill him. A fucking flying rock flung from the lawnmower would kill him, but not a bullet from from a supersonic round. Instead, the dudes rise from their grave like Altered Beast or like someone injected them with Robert Patrick's ball sweat from the Terminator 2 movie. Rampaging? Rhino. Go down easier than this. Now, while headshots for the most part did kill regardless of caliber, I did have multiple instances where enemies walked through a 7.62 round to their head in what seemed to be a distance to damage cutoff ratio that favored inches over caliber. Not the worst I've seen in a single player game, but not at all the best, and it seems to not be mirrored at all in the multiplayer. I can't see if it's a function of the difficulty or what, but it is there. And it might be because of the AI, which is a mixed bag, and though mostly passable, occasionally your own teammates during scenarios would just suddenly freeze no matter what they're doing, just freeze against a wall saying nothing, and you're left running around the level until you find something that you can click, switch, or adjust or reset, and boom, they unfreeze. It was oddly disconcerting, like some kind of in-the-field battle PSAT test. However, that isn't to say that enemies won't flush you out with grenades, both the exploding your insides kind as well as gas canisters. They also have no problem flanking, cutting corners, or trapping you in a fucking elevator and then mercilessly gunning you down while tactfully telling their teammates how to get the best aim on you. I wish it was a bit less buggy. Overall, it was okay, but that might be why we see some bullet sponginess in the single-player scenarios. And here's where you probably think everything is bad, but it isn't. The real showcase here is that each level is a bit of a story, allowing you to roam around and detectivate, as I like to call it, and find out things about the current case as well as shoot enemies in their faces if they so much as breathe. As you investigate, you uncover new cases or connected cases, and you can read about their connection to your current investigation, as well as hear an audio snippet or two from the game's characters. And this is where Hardline knocks it out of the park. When it's delivering cases and clues and anecdotal vocal cues, the game really feels like a TV episode. Last but not least, you have the awesome ability to take down people passively, which includes both melee attacks and a taser, as well as a handcuff maneuver that is fun as hell. Not always available, but when it is, the arrest mechanic is awesome, and if the game was free world, it would be incredible, but it's not. Regardless, you end up chaining arrests fighting game style, sliding across the basic floor plans of the game's levels, thrusting your left hand out like a Nazi freeze ray, saying freeze, and then bouncing from perp to perp, locking them down with an endless supply of prison love bracelets and criminal zip ties. It's fantastic and is actually quite a useful strategy as it helps you get more points for leveling up because cops don't kill, right? Now also there are a couple driving moments in the game. Think back to some of the James Bond racing games where the driving was funneled for presentation like crime was an entity that all drives on one side of the road, and if you don't go fast enough, it sort of putters around waiting for you to show up because what is crime without a crime fighter? That's the racing bits in this game. The game wants to tell a very specific story, and to do that, it is scripted to hell. At times it demands utter control like that shitty country in the 1940s that got pissed off at the rest of the world because their people couldn't draw the plus sign correctly. With everything being so dramatically and dogmatically scripted, that lends problems to both the AI, as I mentioned before, and to the flow of levels themselves. However, if you do as the developers expected, the levels feel amazing and the world feels alive. There are some moments where the game just clicks and you're fighting a moving, real, and alive battle through the groves of a mountainside mansion, grappling onto roofs and rappelling down in fairly easy movements, but the moment you trip, the entire world takes the donkey. Which brings us to multiplayer. However, you know, multiplayer is just fucking stellar, with some new modes that are wickedly cool, and though the game looks even worse in multiplayer, it plays fantastically well with a good number of unlockables and the requisite badges, emblems, awards, and other shit you can Laffy Taffy to your fucking chest like a desk-bound fool. With the new multiplayer game types like Blood Money and Hotwire, you're in for a damn fine treat, and regardless of playtime or number of games, I didn't have a single issue with the online experience, but if I do, I'll update the review. The new game types took me a bit to understand, but once I got the gist of them, I started doing fairly well, and luckily, some of them allow for people who don't shoot the best to help out their teams in other ways and still get points. Multiplayer is fantastic. The question is, will enough people get this game to fill it out? Fun factor. You know, I have to say, many times I actually loved the game. The mini episodes, the storytelling, and here it's done well, if a bit broken up, and I found myself having wicked fun on some of the levels. Now, some of the later missions have you battling changing areas that just felt awesome. And though that might have been because I hit the scripting just right, it was still enjoyable as hell. While some levels were rather bland and dry, all of them told stories that needed to be told, with the CSI Miami Glades level probably being my favorite as far as atmosphere itself is concerned. Overall, I would say I did have fun, even if many times I shook my head at the stretches in reality even this gritty and more realistic game took with, well, the entire universe. Lastly is longevity. Even in single player, there's a lot to find and unlock, with investigations and clues ranging from easy to find to something holy shit, who is ever going to find that level of difficulty? You could also choose to go through non-violently or totally violent, And though the end won't change, the feel of the game probably would. Additionally, the multiplayer just has excellent modes like Crosshair, which is a typical exec protection military awesomeness, and Heist, which is basically Battlefield's version of Payday 2. There are other additions as well, and to me it feels like Hardline offers more new hotness than any past Battlefield game did when it comes to truly new playable and enjoyable modes within multiplayer. However, I'm just not 100% sure people are going to be there. What does Battlefield do right? The episodic storytelling is actually fantastic, voice acting is amazing, music is overall very well done, and the multiplayer, though Battlefield all over again, comes with 9 maps and some very interesting variants. What does Battlefield Hardline do wrong? The story just doesn't make any sense over the long haul. It just really falls apart sadly, and it has an ending that's just, it leaves me questioning what the hell they were even thinking. The graphics are very hit and miss, with more miss across next and past gen versions, while the PC will have the edge, of course. And the AI, though good at times, is also buggy most of the time, and the balance between Bullet Magnet and Bullet Love Machine is swayed far heavily to one side. I really dislike that. So as you know, I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, rent, or never talk about it again rating scale. This is a wait for a sale. The game truly tries to do something fun and interesting, even if it's not entirely new. And at times it does have success, but whether you want to blame its cross-platform breach birth graphics, its buggy AI or somewhat borked game balance, or lastly, just the fact that you have to stick through a story forcibly because it can be so wonky, the game's awesome multiplayer just isn't good enough for a full price purchase. There's just not enough there when you don't know if other people are going to come. It isn't more the sum of its parts like some other games. Instead, some of the parts of this game really bring it up and others drag it tremendously low. So that's it for me. If you like the video, hit like. If you dislike the video, hit dislike. Follow us on Twitter. Check out our homepage. Whatever. Peace out.